Hello, this is a note about loading Grib files into qtVlm. And I'm going to concentrate just on loading them. So later we'll come back and have another video on how to displaying them and reading them, all the various display options for the different parameters and how to read them. And then later a third video on the various models that are available in Grib format. So let's start out by discussing. This is the tool, but this is, I think, the default toolbar that you get when you load the program. And when we're talking about loading Grib files, it is these icons here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Primarily these, and then here's where now that's on the loading them. Then here's where you step through them and so forth. So this sort of section right here to here is all related to the Grib files, loading them and displaying them. And so this button here has a special behavior. You press it and hold it down, and you'll have these different options for loading these, which I'm going to get to. This is the configuration of the Grib files, which is more related to displaying them. And this will not open unless you have one loaded. I have a HRR model loaded here at the moment. So let's look first. I'm going up here, and I'm on a Mac. So if I ever say Command I or Command W on a PC, that would be Control I or Control W. The two programs are very similar, well, essentially identical. And then here's qtVlm at the top. The difference is on a PC, the menu bar stays in the window here. On a Mac, it doesn't. So up here, but a qtVlm, and then here's preferences. Now on a PC, that will be called configuration. It'll be down at the bottom. Okay, so that's that. So I want to open that up. I just want a quick look at over here, Gribs and harmonics, and just to look at a couple things. These are special things. Okay. Here is one thing I would do right away, is make a folder on your computer. And I made one here called users. That's a user, MacDavid, and then documents, my Gribs. And you just put that here. And once you make one, then you can just browse to find it, and then put that here. And then all the Grib files that you download will go to that one place. I think there's a great virtue in that. And then if you turn this on, it's going to ask you every time. So we don't want to, I would say just make this folder here, and then you can leave that off. And they'll always go right here. The next line, automatically delete Gribs after 3 days. I would leave that off because often once they're all in the same folder here like this, it's very easy to delete what you want, so that's not an issue. And automatically delete. And you may end up losing things that you want to keep. So I would just leave that off. Zoom to the Grib after you've downloaded it. I think that's a very nice function because you may have moved around somewhere, and what that means is if you load a Grib, it's gonna, even if you've changed the screen over here and you're looking at somewhere else, and then you come back and load a Grib, it's gonna automatically put you over where you want to look at that data. That's fine. Show sale docs option. This is very important here. You have to do this, turn this on, and we'll see that in a moment. And the log loading, that doesn't matter right now. Keep only wins, that should be off. Automatically extend currents. This is related to routing, it doesn't matter. Probably on is going to be the right choice there. The main thing I wanted to get to is define a folder that you're going to put things in, and then make these settings that are in this line right here. Okay. Now, so let's look at, so one command right now, I want to delete all Gribs out of the system that are in there. And I can do that with Command W, or you just go up here, Grib, close all gribs. So that takes all the grib data. Grib, and remember, grib is just a strange nickname we're using here. Grib is actually a format. It's a format of numerical weather prediction model forecasts. So when we say grib, that could be anything in the world. It's almost like saying PDF or Word doc, something like that. But in this case, grib means a forecast of some kind. It can be wind, temperature, pressure, ocean waves, currents, so forth. All right, so right now they have here, because you need to have a Grib file of wind loaded to do any kind of routing or simulation and so forth in the program, they have a very easy way to get a load of Grib, a default sort of like a shotgun load. And I would go up here, now you hold down that button for the time being, and I'm not even defining an area. I could define an area, right? I could click this button and define, I could click this button here and define an area, escape, or I can just take whatever's in the window. If I define an area, then the Grib I'm going to get is going to be something like this area. It's going to always round up to the nearest whole degree in all directions, but it's going to be something like that. I'll have to come back to that point. Or you can just hold this down and say this one, partial VLM Grib. Now that is a shotgun loading of a Grib file. This button here, this toolbar here, just turns them on and off. It's not, the data is always there. It's just showing it or not showing it, right? Like that. And this, when you do that, that process there is going to download GFS wind only, GFS wind, and it's going to do it at 0.5 degrees resolution. That's twice the normal, so it's not the best resolution, but it'll be 0.5 degrees, and it's every 3 hours for 5 days. And you can go up here to the clock and look at that, and just say here, there's each of the forecasts that it's just downloaded, every 3 hours for 5 days. And then generally you would set this, you would want to come in here and set it up here. You're going to have reasons to set it to other times, but generally you want to get a time for the Grib, and then that, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but then that's going to show the Grib time over here. Okay, so that's loaded that way. That is a sort of a shotgun approach to downloading a Grib. It's very fast, and you have wind data when you need it, because you do need wind to run a simulator. Okay, next point is, let's just mention this. It's more into the next lesson, but if I do now Command I, that's information on the Grib, right? That's up here, Grib, information, you see, and a PC is Control I. And that's here. And that is going to tell you what you have loaded, how the size of the file, the dates that are covered, the parameters that are in there, and so forth. We'll come back to that. So that's the way you see what's in there. But we're going to generally want a much more, if you just need wind in there to do simulation, then that's going to be just fine. But if you're actually doing weather work, looking ahead to routing or planning a sailboat race or a daily cruise or something, then we're going to want to be a lot more specific. So let's come back up to these. These have the other ways to get files, but let me look at this button first. This file, this button right here, is going to go to, now it's where it's going to go now is because I've assigned all my Gribs to go here. So it's going to go here and ask for pulling a Grib out of here. But I would recommend that that's not a particularly good way to load a Grib, even ones you have on your computer already. In other words, we have two things we can do here. We can actually request a Grib that we don't have on the computer, or we can in fact have one that we got from somewhere else or loaded earlier or one thing or another, and now just load it into the program. This goes and gets one that's already downloaded and loads it in the program. The problem is it's going to overwrite what's in the system. So let's back up just a minute and discuss what is really a nice feature of the program. And if you go up to Grib, you see there's things called slots. Slot 1, 2, and 3. That means you can open up 3 different Grib files at the same time. and they're going to go into one of these slots. And you can see what slot it is. This guy here is loaded into slot 1, that's slot 2, and to see if I click this, there's nothing there. There's only something in slot 1. But I can load into three different slots. And that is the best way, my opinion, that's the best way to do it, because then you know where it's going and you have control. You could have important data somewhere, and then you click and hit this and forget the fact that that's going to get rid of everything that's loaded and write it into one. I would tend to even go into the setup of the toolbar and remove this icon. But anyway, it depends on your own use. But I would say that the way to load a Grib is you go up here and say slot 1. And now once you say slot 1, well, let me just close it now because it's got something I didn't really want. I'm going to go Grib slot 1, and then I'm going to, now I can see the different ways I can get data. I can get there's no virtue of this first one. There's no virtue of that one. This one, XY Grib, if I click that, that's a way to get GFS or a couple other models. The one that we might be using, NAM, CONUS, or here for U.S. work. These others are European, I think. And this is one of these, Icon may be global. But anyway, you can get GFS here. But the virtue here is you can get more than wind. You can see you can get wind, temperature, reflectivity, that's simulated radar reflectivity, other parameters. And so you could get them. And so if you wanted data for a particular region, you can hit this button. This is a selector window, and do this. Or you can put the shift key down and just drag like that. And then I would go Grib 1, and then let's say I'm going to go this one, XY Grib, and then get the GFS, let's say 0.25 degrees. I want wind, temperature, and reflectivity, like that. And then you just say download the Grib. Now that's, okay, so there you go. Now, what it did was, you see, this sort of strange pattern here, I drew a box something like this, and you see it rounded to that one, and then it rounded down to that one. If I'd have drawn a box, that looks like this, then it would have grabbed all four of these. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because we're going to want to have better control over that shortly. But anyway, that's how I've loaded this GFS wind for that area. Let me see what else we have here that I want to be sure to mention. I'm looking at my notes. Okay, let's look at the other options. You've got Grib. Okay, Grib 1. And then I've got these. There's no particular. This is the one we just talked about before. Grib Great Circle, that's a private company that you have to have a login for, but there's no virtue. They're not offering us anything that we can't get out of the GFS, frankly. They've got the European model ECMWF and Mercator Ocean Currents, which are good, but we can get by in sailing in the near U.S. waters. We have NCOM currents, which are as good as the others or better. And then the new GFS is just as good as ECMWF. So there's no virtue in that one. So basically, well, these are small nutshells I'm making here. So, but let's come back to the workhorse. Where is SailDocs? I don't see SailDocs. Well, SailDocs I have down here separate, but it's going to go into, let's see, if I have Grib slot 1, Grib SailDocs. Okay, so SailDocs is the workhorse of our downloading options here. And and because we can get a high resolution model. This is a GFS. We could get when you turn this on, then you see the options you can get from GFS. There's other models that they offer which have to be discussed in that later article. But the key ones here is that you're going to want this for local waters. You need this high resolution data here. And this is, in a sense, the best way to get it. We have lots of ways to get GFS, but this is the way you get this here. And so if I want the HER model here, I would, let's say I just draw a little box like this, go to Grib. I'm going to go to slot 2. I'm going to go to Grib Sail Docs and get this. And then you say send an email. So then what that does is that creates an email that you then just send. You just send that email, and then that'll come back. I'm going to pause till that email comes back. Okay, that email came back, and it comes back from in less than a minute usually, but it's almost like return mail. But if you're at sea, then you got to deal with how you're getting your mail at sea and so forth. But it'll come back as an attachment like this, and then over here we have this folder My Gribs. Then you would just take this and drag it into here. And so that's that one like that, and that's the way you get the mail. That's the way you get the HER data from Sail Docs. And that was also, I don't know, I was pausing here because I was looking at Grib and slot 1 slot, and I wanted to put that into slot 2, and I didn't see Sail Docs here, and for a minute I was puzzled. But there's not to be puzzled, because what happens is when you download from Sail Docs, it's going into a folder. So we would then just go into here and then just say click that Grib slot 2, say, and then I want to open, or open. But you see, I'm saying slot 2 open this way. I'm not doing this, which is just plain open. That's going to go into slot 1. But I'm going here, Grib slot 2 open, and then it's going to be the one I guess I just did, the most recent. That's the most recent, yeah. And you click that and say open, and then that opens. That's a file there. Now that's interesting. Okay, so already what you see something interesting, which is the next class. Next time we talk about it, you see I'm looking now at 1 and 2, and these are 2 different colors, which we've set up here in the color section in different lesson. So and so you're comparing those 2 different forecasts. One is one color, one is the next, and then you can step through. These are hourly data, so you can actually step through and compare those that way. All right, so those are and so that's why I think it's very important to load into a specific Grib slot. One last thing that I'll mention. And it's not very important. It's not too important when you're doing all your work on land and you have a big internet connection. That's not an issue. But it is an issue when you're underway and you're asking for the data by a satellite phone. And because this rounds up and over and gets you a pretty big file, and because this HER model is a very high resolution, these can get to be big files very quickly. See, that file I just downloaded. No, is that it? Where is the date modified? That file was all 937 kilobytes. That's all huge to go by satellite phone already. So what you'll want to do there is actually limit things. So I would go up here. Let me go back here to qtVlm preferences, go to units, and set your coordinates to degrees, like this. Now, again, in this program, and when you're combining navigation and weather work and things like that, you're going to be bouncing back and forth between having decimal degrees be preferred versus degrees and decimal minutes. Rarely do we use that seconds. That seconds not used for anything. But this one here, so we want this now in decimal degrees. Okay. Then what you can do is you can go in here and go with your box and define an area that you want right there. Very carefully. Then put your mouse over it and you see it. You read out the lat lon of that exact area. You're just going 40.65 up to 41.19, and then the longitude range 72. You read it there. So you may have to, well, you'd have to write that down probably. And then you do right click and then you say Grib Sail Docs. And then you ask what you want. And again, don't ask for Gus if you don't need it. Don't ask for this. Ask for just what you want over that area. Then when you say send an email and it comes back, then you go in here. You see it rounded to 42 and 40. Then you just go in and type in, change that latitude and these two latitudes, these two longitudes to exactly that window size. To exactly the window size you wanted, and then submit it. Then you'll get back a nice tidy little file, just what you want. All right, I'm going to leave it there for now, and then later come back and discuss the ways to fine-tune the view of how to set up the viewing of the Grib files and the various ways to read the data.